So my name is Apurva. I'm working with MetLife in InfoSec Risk Management. I am a Cybersecurity alumni of 2019 batch. Cybersecurity is a joint skilling initiative for young women by DSCI and Microsoft. I'm delighted to welcome you all to this session, Network and Security, Consistent Convergence. The session will begin shortly, and it's my pleasure to invite fellow panelists on the dais. Sapan Talwar, Global CISO, Perifeti Ven Mille, Mayur Desai, Head of Station Global Security in Vesco, Rajesh Kumar, SVP and CISO EXL, and Subin Mulsiral, Head of System Engineering, South India and Sri Lanka, Palo Alto Networks. Now I would like to request Mayur Desai to hand over the session, take over the session. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Would like to take this opportunity to thank DSCI for giving this opportunity, and also would like to welcome my fellow panelists as well. Happy to be sharing the panel with them. So, very interesting topic, right? Network and security, consistent convergence, architectural consolidation, and platformization of security. So, previously to this session, we just saw track 2, which was covering the cloud aspects and the security and the privacy into the cloud, right? And that kind of gives a good segue to the next topic that we're going to focus on, which is going to be purely covering some aspects of SASE and then the platformization of security, right? So, so lots is happening in last 3 to 4 years, post-pandemic specifically. There's been a lot of technology transformation that is happening. So, so let me start with introducing the topic to everyone. Let's understand what is SASE first to start with on the topic. So, SASE stands for Secure Access Service Edge. That's just an acronym that I wanted to introduce to start with. Before I further explain what SASE is, let's rewind back into time, right? Let's say 20 years back, the security was predominantly bolted by network products like routers, right? That's where it started, everything, right? With time, when we added more complexity to application and network, we saw new products like next-gen firewall with IDS and IPS capability coming in, right? And when we look back, probably 5 years with so much of technology transformation happening, cloud taking a major transformation where most of the organizations have started. Post-pandemic, I think there's been a lot of push for the organizations to move their infrastructure into the cloud. And in the previous session, we heard a lot about cloud, what benefit it brings in. So I'm not going to dwell on that particular topic. But what also it brings is the complexity. So most of the organizations today operate in hybrid multi-cloud environment with adding SaaS applications as well, right? So the complexity is just multiplied over a period of time, right? So what are we trying to solve here today? So let's take a understanding of what is we are trying to solve with SASE, right? So let's take an example. An user is trying to access an application, and in today's environment, organizations have their data centers. They are spread across multiple cloud environments. They also have SaaS applications. So let's say a user is accessing an application, whether it's hosted in a data center, multiple cloud environments, SaaS applications. It's all over, right? So many networks connected. Some applications might have upstream and downstream application linked from data center into the cloud, right? So how do you address the security part of it, address the networking consistency part of it? How do you bring a single platform where a user can have a seamless access to any application, any data over any network? That is what we as in the sense SASE is going to solve for us, right? So that is my introduction to you about SASE. SASE typically has 5 major components to start with, right? First is next generation SD-WAN, and then you You have your zero trust. I think in the previous session, the panel members spoke about what zero trust is all about, right? Secure web gateway is another component, major component today with hybrid environment, with multi-cloud environment and SaaS applications, right? And then you see today firewall as a service being introduced, right? And then everybody understands what CASB is all about, right? Cloud access security brokers, right? So this is to introduce you to SASE. These are the 5 major components of what SASE is all about. So let me start with certain questions posed to my fellow panelists. So let me start with Sapan. So I'll start with you. Uh, how in today's environment, when we look at it, right, as I said, data center, multi-cloud environment and SaaS applications as a complexity, how can we simplify the network architecture for any organization, a user accessing application, whether it's in data center? So how do you build a network architecture which is quite simplified across so much of different varied infrastructure? How do you do it from your experience?
Sure. Thank you, Mayur. Firstly, I would say you summed up SASE so well. I don't think so. We need to talk, right? On all seriousness, you included everything of what a SASE product includes. And I think probably before answering your question, let me do some engagement and dip check. I hope everyone understood Mayur's view. So, and now understands what SASE is, right? That's, I'm sure as security practitioners, we understand that. So, but there is something also called SSE, right? Everyone aware, right? Secure Service Edge, right? What is the difference between SASE and SSE? He just gave the answer, but I'm just checking if you guys have been able to get the answer out of what Mayur just said. Anyone? This is a different session than what you have been attending in past, so we'll have question and answers. Don't worry. Anyone want to take a chance? It's an easy one, guys. Come on. Everyone had food, right? I wanted to wake you guys up if anyone was wanting to sleep. Anyone wants to give a try? Just maybe it is. There's nothing wrong here. I'll still accept whatever you answer is as correct. Anyone? And I'm forced to answer now. So I think Mayur very well explained the components, right? If I want to break those components into broader 2 parts, SSE is what he mentioned the 5 components are, basically. Firewall as a service, zero trust security, security web gateway, identity management, and the 5th component, right? While SASE is adding the SD-WAN layer, software-defined WAN layer to it, right? And trying to consolidate everything into single architecture. So your question was around simplifying the architecture. So the architecture simplification, I think the first and most important thing in any architecture is, from my perspective, simplification means that you have one view. So once we have one single centralized view of our entire components, which user is connecting from where, what he or she is connecting, what he is trying to connect, he or she is trying to connect, right? And do we have logging of each and every instance of what they are trying to access in our environment? That is what I call a centralized view. So SASE does this for everyone. We were talking about SSE, which is Secure Service Edge layer, all the 5 components, plus the SD-WAN, because anyone will come to access anything, whether it's on-prem or on cloud, via a network layer, right? So SD-WAN helps here and consolidated everything, and then having one single view of centralization is what a simplistic view of SASE is, right? I hope that gives a perspective. And now you can answer the question between SSE and SASE, right? Yeah, that's what I would say. I can mention. So
Sure.
It's a user trying to access via SD-WAN various components, putting all the security layers, whether it's CASB, whether it's zero trust, whether it's security web gateway, trying to access a resource which is available either on cloud or on-prem, and then making sure each of this is secure, each of the transaction is secure, and we can get, as security practitioners, we can get to see what is happening in our environment. Because only if we get to see, we can catch hold of something which is malicious, right? So that is what SASE does in the end.
Sure. And that gives a lot of insight, Sapan. Thank you so much. The next question I have for my panel member, which is on the cloud native scalability, I'll post it to Rajesh. So the specific question on this, Rajesh, for you this afternoon is, what is the relevance of using cloud providers for providing scale? So that's the first part of the question. What advantages organizations have if they decide to adopt SASE framework that is built with cloud native technologies? So if you can share some insights.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not going to take the same challenge that Sapan did and ask you something. I'm going to focus on what Mayur called out. To me, SASE start consolidating these 4 or 5 layers that we basically have is the need of the hour was that 4 or 5 years back, and SASE was there sometime before pandemic hit us as well. But 4 or 5 years back, it actually became very, very prominent to actually focus on having something like this architecture. And the reason for that was my user actually start going out. Rather than putting them all into one area and having the perimeter as the security layer, as where I divide everything. Now I have n number of offices which are work from home and people working from their location. That means just looking at one particular aspect for me actually become very, very difficult. And when I start looking at that more broadly, and when SaaS and the other new capabilities started coming in, doing it on-prem with one particular hosted environment become a real challenge for me. And that is where the cloud native services, which most of the SaaS provider have started offering, is something coming out as a savior, where you can switch on and off on some of these capability as and when you require. New geography coming in, new M&A acquired entity coming in, I can simply provide some basic capability just from this cloud native to extend my network to their environment and make sure the single view that Sapan was talking about is consistently available. So Mayur, from that perspective, expansion as well as availability of this across the multi-cloud environment, and to make sure that the users get the feeler, get the experience from wherever they are, is why I would prefer to have a cloud native SaaS provider. Most of my workload is going to be on the cloud very soon. Of course, I do need to protect my on-prem as well, the hosted application as well. So a combination of this, if I can get a single view from a cloud native, is going to simplify the life for the security professionals and CISO for definitely for sure.
Sure. And as Rajesh said, right, most of the CISOs struggle with multiple security products. So how do we bring everything under one umbrella, one platform? That's key, right? And we as a security practitioners also want to look at what are the native capabilities that we can leverage from the cloud service providers, right, to address the scalability and address a lot of other aspects as well. So with that, I want to move to the next question, which is around centralized management. I would like to pose this question to Suvin. In most of the organizations that relied on premise security devices, management was always disparate. How does the SASE vision translate on the management side? That's the first part of the question. What considerations do you think are relevant for single point management?
Thank you, Mayur, for that. Is my voice audible at the back? I hope it is. Okay. So when this is giving you a sort of an OEM view, okay, and I'm sure that a large number of you will have or are evaluating SASE platforms for use within your organizations. And at Palo Alto Networks, when we built this platform of SASE on, like what I think Rajesh was saying, on a cloud native, cloud with cloud provider scale. But when we actually walked around the management piece, we found it extremely tricky. We were the ones who actually started doing next generation firewall with all of the services that were needed on the network security standpoint. And the angle that we took was, I'll go back to the first statement that I think Sapan was making, the difference between SASE and SSE. If you are looking at an architecture and a platform that needs to bring together both SD-WAN and SSE, and you end up managing SD-WAN capabilities on a totally different platform. Like for example, the routing, the configuration that needs to go in for deciding how traffic would flow between your branch offices and your headquarters or your data center or cloud infra, then it basically means you're managing it out of two different locations. If you, there's another part to it also, right? So if you look at the advent and the way SASE evolved, especially in the post-COVID world, initially the construct was, and when a large number of providers started, organizations started looking at SASE, the first goal was to secure internet access. So which meant it was the proxies that were undergoing a refresh, which meant that for all practical purposes, everything that was bound to the internet was something that you needed to manage. But then organizations realized that a large number of their applications were still either on-prem or inside cloud infrastructure, like what Rajesh is saying. So if you've got an AWS or applications that are hosted in AWS or Azure, then you would need to actually secure access to those applications also. So does it mean that you need a separate management console for that? No. And now let's layer on security. All of us are security practitioners. Be it DNS, be it a spyware callback, be it a file that is passing through your network. It can be a file that is stored on an Azure storage. It can be a file that's downloaded off the general internet. You need to be able to visualize all of this in one place. And when you add on the SD-WAN component also, the effectiveness of management will come in if you're able to manage all of the security functions, all of the policies that are required for all kinds of users. Rajesh was talking about the fact that COVID pushed a large number of users remote. And today we are in a state, we were talking to a large number of customers now who are now, how many of you go to office 3 days a week now in Delhi? Yeah? So a few of you go to office 3 days a week. In Bangalore, we are now doing 5 days a week, despite all the traffic. So which means, but at the same time, there was this joke that I read online that said, someone asked the employee to come back to office, and he said, I'll come back to office, but when I go back home, I'm turning off my laptop. And his manager said, that's not possible. You can't turn off your laptop. You still need to be available. So which means that when the user goes back home, he still needs to connect and access his applications. So which basically means all of the security functions, all the networking functions, everything for all users, irrespective whether they're in office or at home, need to be managed from a single console. So when you're evaluating SASE solutions, please make sure that management simplicity comes to the fore.
Thank you, Suvin. And I think that sums up quite well, right? Why centralized management console is so critical. And I'm sure all the security practitioners here understand that very well. So with that, another aspect that I want to talk about today is adaptive security policies. As Suvin was talking about, giving an example, right? A user accessing any application which is in data center might have certain applications in cloud, consuming some SaaS applications. We as a security practitioners, how do we implement consistent security policies across such large hybrid infrastructure, right? So that's going to be my question back to Sapan this afternoon. So how important it is for organizations to have adaptive security policies, how are they configured, and what security and observability improvements can adaptive security policies provide?
Very difficult question you've asked. Yeah, I think Rajesh and Sumin already set up the base and the context here. We are talking about multi-cloud environment, like Rajesh mentioned. We are talking about centralized view and how each of the different kind of users, hybrid users, like only remote users or office users, can still manage and need to access the same environment, because we need to give a seamless experience to each one of them. Right? That's the need of the hour. We cannot get away with it. And I think the core of everything is, in the end, moving away from technology to the policy, because that's where we want to make sure that a policy which we create, which is based on the identity of the user, from anywhere a user is accessing the environment, right? And it should include and encapsulate all of these needs into one single view and try to put a policy which is easier to manage, easier to deploy in the end, and adaptive in nature, right? So that is what SASE platform, in my understanding, allows and gives a lot of flexibility to make sure that these contextual based policies can be deployed seamlessly. And my friend Suvin can talk more about it. But That's my understanding of SASE, and we get to reach that stage where we start doing this in real sense. But I think that's, to me, the biggest advantage of having this feature set, because beyond a centralized view, you also need to have centralized policies. If you are deploying 10 different policies for 10 different products which you're using, then it's one of the same thing. You're using 10 different solutions or 10 different approaches. So I think that's where SASE, to me, is a big yes from a security practitioner perspective. If you are using multiple tool sets, and I don't want to go to acronyms, but we all know we are talking about CASBs, SWGs, ZTNAs, and all this thing. But in the end, we are trying to protect our environment and trying to see that whatever we do, the access is not disrupted. Right? A user is seamlessly able to connect to where he or she wants. That's what SASE plays a major role, and I believe, as I just to repeat, it's a major use case which we can touch upon when we deploy any SASE-based solution in regards to the policy deployment.
And you bring us up a very good point, right? The one of the other objectives of SASE is also to give seamless user experience, at the same time ensuring the security aspects of it, right? So very, very important aspect of the SASE. So on your same question, let me just pose the question a little differently to Suveen, from a practitioner point of view, from an OEM point of view. Have you seen any practical challenges that you've worked with different organizations, specifically on how you can drive consistent policies, adaptive security policies? Any challenges that you have faced, and how did you overcome? Just taking the topic a little deeper.
Yeah, so if I were to ask the audience here, right, I mean, you're here because you're network security practitioners and you want to understand more about SASE and how organizations actually deploy SASE, what is our view. So how many of you have today a separate policy structure for firewalls? Firewalls, yes, separate. Are they user-based or IP-based? Sometimes user, sometimes largely IP-based. Your user context gets added on with a proxy. And at the proxy layer, unfortunately, there may not be policies that are relevant for non-web traffic because it doesn't go to your proxy, correct? And at the same time, when you today's user is not coming from a consistent device. The user can be at home, can be in office. The user can be using personal devices, because trust me, all of us are here, but all of us are still working. If you get an email, you still need to respond.
Absolutely.
If you're on Slack, I'm on Slack. How many of you use Slack within your organizations? Do you have an equivalent of Slack? Yeah. So which means 3 minutes and you don't get a response, you're going to go, excuse me. So which basically means you're all working now. So in this state, if you have to create a separate policy for a user when he's on a device that is not owned by the organization, if you have to create a separate policy on a separate solution for a user who's accessing it from a corporate device, then it becomes tricky to manage. Because at no point in time will you have absolute clarity as to what device, what user is using to access what application. So when you're defining a policy construct on SASE, and this is across any OEM that you choose, the advantage of using a SASE-based approach is that the policy structure is user-defined, is based on the user, is based on the device that the user is trying to access the application from, is consistent across where the user is accessing it from. So which means you would need to create an adaptive policy that says, I will not allow a user to download intellectual property onto a device that is owned by the user. And that needs to be a single policy construct. And that's exactly what Sapan was saying earlier, when it means an adaptive policy that adapts to change. Like, for example, we've had situations where we've heard, you do not, when organizations come speak to us, right, they've got extremely simple use cases, but might be very difficult to deploy. In the sense that if my device is compromised, let's assume there is malware present, I need to be able to block access. And that information should flow from whatever endpoint solution you're using to the SASE construct for you to make that decision. You need to be able to figure out if a device is compliant, and the policy structure has to adapt itself to that. And that's what we mean by adaptive policies. And when you make your decisions, make sure that you have these policies written in that manner.
Thanks, Suvin, for sharing some of your experiences. Now,
yeah, and I just wanted to add, I think So I think one more aspect which is very important, I think, and you brought upon a breach scenario, right? So in my understanding, and I'm hoping that everyone agrees, that there are two major areas where we need to not let our guard down. One is configuring a tool, and second is configuring a policy, right? I think if we are not doing this right in anything we use, we are opening the gates, right? So I think that's where the SASE product, and that's why the policy becomes the most important thing, specifically to manage it seamlessly and ensuring that the access is perfect and there is no one malicious trying to get into it. So that's what the last point I want to mention.
Sure. Uh, Earlier, just few minutes back, I spoke about enhanced user experience, keeping the consistent user experience. Now, question to Rajesh on enhanced user experience. This is for you, Rajesh. With the new post-COVID user spread, right? Companies are getting users back to work. User experience sometimes suffers, right? Somebody working from home, somebody coming back to office, somebody working from remote branches, somebody working from cafes, with little control that IT department has on the last mile today, right? How organizations started on the SASE journey provide an enhanced user experience. So can you just talk about how do we address this enhanced user experience problem that we have today?
Sure, Mayur. And I think the problem of the SASE is actually trying to solve definitely is twofold. One, we are practitioners sitting over here. The problem to manage so many of the devices. So we talked about all of that. But I think there is another problem which is that you just referred to, which earlier both the my panelist Sapan and Dipesh called that out. Sapan and Suveen called that out. But yes, which is the user. Now, I earlier mentioned that user is now everywhere. You mentioned it could be in a Starbucks sitting today. It could be on vacation on a Goa beach, or working from office. They expect the consistency of the delivery that they are doing, consistency of the work that they are doing to be same. They don't want that when they are in at home, they need to connect to a VPN device or a VPN application while work. When they come home, come to office, they will be scanned for looking at the consistency of the posture of their endpoint. They basically says that if I am in I open my laptop or I get an email, it has to be get an email on my mobile device. I should be able to feel the same way. It should be, and I shouldn't be wasting any time. I'm okay to look at multiple devices, multiple component, but that shouldn't hamper my productivity. Every second that you basically gonna give me is something which is critical for me to be providing the experience to myself and then to the organization. From that perspective, a cloud native, all these coins, 5 areas integrated and being offered to them as a single sign on and a single capability is something which add to their overall experience. Now they don't need to worry about that when they are looking at Slack or a Team or a Zoom and it is hosted on a SaaS service versus when they are actually looking at something which is hosted in a custom developed application in my data center. And they don't need to worry about the performance of accessing of those or the security concern that basically come up because of that aspect. Yes, we do provide them the awareness, and they need to be sometimes conscious about when they are working on a organization provided asset. They expect it to be consistently providing the view, whether it is in office or from that perspective. So from that perspective, this backend seamless capability is definitely adding their positive experience. They are still struggling, by the way. It is not that all these 5 areas is going to be the end of this essay. I'm sure all the OEMs are gonna enrich in this further to bring in new capabilities. They are waiting for that. The users are still looking for some of those capabilities that they still need to do in a out of SASE. They don't know this, but they expect that experience can be more consistent. But yes, from what it used to be 4 or 5 years back, I think that consistency has been much more higher. The user feedback is much more positive, and their issues related to that, the VPN didn't work from home, and when they basically got into this, seamless SASE solution, is much more better when it used to be like 4 or 5 years back.
Sure. Thanks, Rajesh, for that. So now let me uh, come back to one of the points which I started initially is post pandemic, right? Two aspects that have where we have seen lot of uh, pace that has taken, right? First, most of the users during pandemic went completely remote, 100% remote, right? That was one acceleration. Second is we have seen organization rapidly migrating applications onto cloud. So that's been a big agenda on most of the CTOs and CIOs, right? And now we see organizations have hybrid environment where a lot of applications have moved to cloud. So with that brings my next question is on the private application access. And now this question I will open it to all my panelists and we can go in a sequence order. Is uh, how is private application access simplified with SASE? Okay, and what design considerations do organizations needs to keep in mind? So two aspects to this question, and we'll start with you, Sapan. We'll go to Suvin, and then we'll come back to Rajesh on the same point.
Sure. I think in the end, we all are trying to connect to our environment to access something, right? An application, a database, some information which we need to make sure that we work, whatever work is deployed on us. Right? So more importantly, I think it's about first thing is experience, which Rajesh touched upon, then the seamlessness of entire thing, and in the end, it is about securely connecting with the right encryption built into each and every transport layer, right? As well as whatever data we are accessing is also secure in the right way, right? That these two in combined would make sure that we are able to access any private application which is running in our own environment as and when we need. Because in the end, we just spoke, we are running in a hybrid environment. Everyone is sitting in a different location. Rajesh also mentioned Goa. Probably we are going to Goa after the vacation for the vacations. But the point remains that wherever we are able to securely access our data which is residing on the app. I think that's what SASE enables us to do. And as I mentioned previously as well, as security administrators, practitioners, SOC people, we are seeing each and every of that information passing through our environment because we have a centralized environment. Each component is talking to the other component until right from the physical layer to the application layer and the network layer, and making sure that that access enablement is through while we know that is it a right person or a malicious person trying to come in, and that's what makes the platform great, I would say.
So, Suvin, from OEM perspective, what are your feedback and insights into it?
Sure. So I just wanted to take off one side detour to sort of add on to what Rajesh had mentioned about the user experience part, and then I'll come to that. I hope that's okay. So from a user experience standpoint, just to sort of add on, one of the biggest problems that we've been facing when we speak to our to the people in the field is that I'm okay to go SASE and look at SASE, but then what happens is because people are, like I said, like we heard Goa and in Starbucks and all that, it becomes extremely difficult for a help desk agent or someone who's actually sitting in the IT help desk to figure out what's wrong with that connection. Why is that user facing, let's say, application slowness? Why is that user saying that everyone is able to access the SAP application, supposed to be called SAP, right? Not SAP. Which one is it? SAP. Yeah. So I need to be politically correct there. So if all of the users are able to access SAP correctly, but a specific set of users are not, how does the IT admin or the help desk agent figure out what's wrong? So from an end user experience perspective, SASE also adds on the capability to continuously monitor end users' Wi-Fi capabilities. How close are they to the Wi-Fi access point? Is there any disturbance on the Wi-Fi? What is the last mile looking like? What is the connection to the servers looking like? All of that. So that actually adds that additional flavor of user experience so that troubleshooting is faster. Now coming to the last point on private access, and this is an oft ignored piece of SASE, and I'll tell you why. All of you use Chrome, or what browser do you use? Chrome? Edge? There are still people who use Edge. Apparently it's faster than Chrome is what I heard now. So, yeah. So, but on Chrome or Edge, how many tabs do you have open at any point in time? 6, 7? That's very less. 10, 12, 15, 20, 25. Are all of them internet? On a corporate laptop, most probably not. You're accessing both the internet and the intranet from a single browser. Why should traffic to the destinations flow through different solutions for you to have visibility? So which means the same kind of security that you need to enforce for your internet applications, you need to enforce for your private applications. And I'll give you a reason why. When it comes to a private application, it is more confidential to you. That is where your crown jewels are. That is where all of the intellectual property that you need to protect is. If you don't inspect all the traffic that is happening towards your private application, it basically means you have a blind spot in your network. If there is a compromised user or a device who has an internet tab open to Google Drive and an intranet tab open up to your private application that has your financial data, they will be able to download financial information from your private application and upload it to Google Drive. The only point of protection there is the internet access security where you have data protection. Is that sufficient? No. The same way, in case there is malware that is spreading, malware can also spread via private applications. So which means, one, you need to ensure that you use and treat both internet and private applications in a similar manner. You have the same security functionalities and features enforced for both, and you have full visibility for all the flows in a single console. Yeah.
Thank you, Suvin. Rajesh, your insights into this?
Sure. So, going towards last, and when you have so much of the insight, there is not much left to be said. But I think the underlying aspect which I would like to add on is probably we didn't talk about that, is the zero trust. The overall access and the assurance that it actually provides through the validation, which is the definition of zero trust, is where my private access or the private application access actually helps with. Suvin's talked about clearly how my crown jewels are sitting largely over here. Yes. At the same time, the exposure still on the inside of the network is significantly higher, because if one asset get compromised, the exposure becomes that much higher, because then the lateral movement can compromise a lot many other things. So from that perspective, I think what I'm going to add is the zero trust aspect, which is the fifth or the second layer, tower that you basically talked about within the SASE, is where it plays the role. It makes sure that if there is a gap, I keep validating the posture of the endpoint, if keep validating the user, and from that perspective, the insider or the internal private application is something that are protected and continuously protected. So that is an aspect which we look for in SASE, Mayur.
Sure, thank you. And that is a very important component of complete SASE, right? Zero trust, right? It kind of, and I'm sure, Suvin, based on your market understanding, right? A lot of organizations have already started the journey on zero trust. As an OEM, you definitely know, right, on the zero trust.
Yes.
Anything that you want to add before I move to the next topic?
Yeah, so for those of you who are on zero trust, are looking to zero trust, SASE is a tool towards that goal. And don't treat zero trust as a product. It's not a product that you can buy. It's not a suite of solutions that you can buy. It's a journey. And just like they say, life is a journey. Enjoy it while you. It's not a destination. It's a journey. Zero trust is also a journey towards security. And like what I think Rajesh was saying, all of the components of security that you choose to build in your frameworks, end goal has to be zero trust. You don't trust a device. You don't trust a user. You don't trust any application or any piece of infrastructure, and you continuously inspect everything that is needed to protect your crown jewels and intellectual property. And SASE is a stepping stone towards that. It's one of the building blocks towards zero trust, and it's best that you start looking at how you can imbibe the principles of zero trust into your infrastructure.
Thanks, Suvin, for that insight. So I want to take this opportunity to again give a simpler definition of what SASE in my words, right? a single platform that can secure all users accessing any application, any data, sitting anywhere. So that's a simpler form of what SASE means. So with that said, my next question is on the platformization of security. So uh, I would start with Rajesh, right? So
You took my last sentence very seriously. Thank you.
so the question is, what's your view? What's your thoughts? How do you define any further insights into platformization of security?
Hmm. So, Mayur, that is a very interesting topic. In fact, uh, for last 2 years or so, we have started to look at the platformization of security as a key aspect in our organization. Uh, what happened 4 years back, and again, it all boiled down to the pandemic. We adopted a lot of capabilities, lot of solutions, point solution over a period of like 12 months. It was needed. We couldn't survive. We couldn't have made people deliver what they were delivering. So from that perspective, it was good. But what happened now is the things have stabilized. Now you look at 20 different console to look at. You have to look at the XDR to get some of the aspect. You still have to look at the firewall to console to look at. And at the end of the day, a vulnerability management solution, and at the end, the SIM and the source, some of those capabilities still remain there as from the very either compliance perspective or whatever the small things which are left out, which doesn't have a detail comprehensive console to get that correlation engine over there. And what my aspect was, it is very ambitious right now to look at what you want to call a platformization journey for the security. It is good. It gives you a very good positive feeling, but uh, we were struggling to look at what is available in the market. They have started coming out with the uh, CNAP type of solution, which is one bucket. Then there are SASE type of solution, which is second bucket. There is multiple next gen capabilities within the SIM solutions, which has started coming out. However, you're still looking at a custom view to look at the platforms of the platforms. So from that perspective, I think the market has still open. But is that something that we shouldn't be doing? Yeah, absolutely, we should be doing, because you still consolidate. You start into that journey, and then when you get into that, eventually the state where you want to take to the next step, this will be your stepping stone from that perspective. uh, it is a long journey for me. I have been doing it over a period of time, but yes, I think the results have started coming out, and I can see from the people perspective, the process perspective, much more consistency and adoption of some of these SASE type of capabilities, much more seamless in my environment.
Thank you, Rajesh. So I would just like to extend the same question to Sapan as well, and if you can share some of your experiences from your
I
journey.
think Rajesh gave a very elaborate answer, which covers all. But I would just want to keep it short and sweet. I would say that yes, that is the approach everyone should start working towards. In the end, it has a lot of advantages. However, and Rajesh already gave some examples of Seam, SOAR, and other similar platforms, CNAP. The point remains that is there, do we need to have one single platform or multiple platforms to manage entire thing? Because the threats are growing, and we know that there are multiple solutions available. It is not always maybe in one's perspective good to put all eggs in the same basket. However, it is not easy to manage multiple baskets. So the point remains, there has to be a balance, and the balance is based on organization to organization. I think it changes. It is not one set rule for everyone. So based on the industry one is in, I would say that we should take a balanced approach.
And I would like to conclude this question with some feedback from your side. So, what's been your experience? What does the market say as what's the adoption? Let me put it that way. What's the market adoption on the platformization of security?
Yeah. So brings us to a close very well, I guess, in terms of platformization, right? So what we've been seeing is a similar sentiment that Rajesh and Sapan have been speaking about. Everyone wants to look at a fewer number of consoles but they don't want to lose out on any of the capabilities. Today, I don't know how many booths are out there. All of them offer some capabilities that are very relevant for organizations. You might have CNAP, you might have CWPP, and I think it was Rajesh, you spoke about acronyms and the number of acronyms that Tapan, you were speaking. Every single booth out there will have at least 2 or 3 acronyms that they're providing. And trust me, most of them, all of them are needed. And not even most of them. They are all there to solve specific security challenges. But what is most important is being able to consolidate them in a manner that makes effective use of the capabilities that they're providing. So with these 2 days, you know what kind of capabilities are there, you know what you need. And I'm sure with the hotbed of talent that India has become, we are, I think, after US and Israel, one of the most uh, uh, fiercely sought after markets, both from a talent perspective as well as from a market perspective. So which means you know what technologies you need, but consolidation is sort of the need of the hour. To sort of paraphrase Sapan, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket, but I don't want too many baskets either.
So, with that, we'll open it up for any questions. Uh, any questions at all from the audience?
Will SASE be applicable to CSPs also, cloud solutions?
So you want to take that?
So to access cloud service providers or data or applications within clouds?
No. As CSP, service provider, cloud service provider, will I be needing SASE?
Absolutely. For your own users, yes. For users who are within your organization, absolutely, yes.
And what rightly said today, there are 21 odd CSP providers approved by the government. Are they using SASE?
May not be using SASE now, but looking and evaluating at SASE to solve the challenges that we were speaking about.
So I think that is a service that CSP is probably gonna start, very soon. If they are not, that is an opportunity for them. That I see that the SASE is largely from the end user who is actually they are the consumer side. So if someone is gonna consume it, someone is gonna offer it as an OEM, and someone is gonna offer it as a service. To me, that is an area for someone to start looking at that. Right now, I'm not sure, or I don't know if anyone of these clouds is actually offering that.
No, but the total ecosystem will be the end user, the organization, and finally at the back end, the cloud. So you can't say it is only for the end user.
It is for their consumption that it is largely going to be for their protection. It is not a pure service or pure use of any application that they will be looking at from giving it to the end user.
Okay, thank you.
I think I would like to take this opportunity to thank all my panelists. It's been a pleasure sharing the dais with them. And lastly, DSCI for the opportunity to give us and speak about this topic. So over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for the wonderful, insightful session. Now, I would like to request Sushmita to take over the session here. We would like to distribute a small token of appreciation.
I'll ask a question before we end.
Thank you.
I love asking questions. So where will all security practitioners go towards the end of the year? The answer is they ran somewhere.
Thank you everyone for attending. Now, thank you so much, Sapan sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rajesh sir, for joining us. Our moderator, Mayur Desai sir, thank you so much. And thank you so much, Suvin, for joining us. Thank you everyone. Have a great day. Thank you.